Hey everybody, welcome to another deep dive, and big thanks to LitRPG Reads and Paul Bello, fine fellow for this one. We're going to be digging into high-level encounters in tabletop RPGs. You know, it's funny, I was just running a game last week. My party, they're all level 18. They were going up against this ancient black dragon. It was a total slugfest. I mean, spells were flying everywhere. The dragon was like reshaping the whole cavern around us. It was intense. My players barely made it out alive. But that got me thinking about how tough it can be to design for high-level parties, you know? So I was super stoked when LitRPG Reads published this article. It's called High-Level Encounter Tables, Testing Your Players at Their Peak. It's got all sorts of juicy ideas about legendary creatures and crazy environments and how to really make those high-level players sweat. So, yeah. Let's get right into it.
You're absolutely right. High-level characters can be a real challenge to design for. By the time they hit those upper levels, they've got a spell for everything. Their hit points are through the roof, and they're decked out in magic items. It's like, what do you even throw at them at that point?
Right. It's like they can just waltz through anything you throw at them.
Exactly. The article talks about this, actually, like how traditional encounters just don't cut it at high levels. It uses the example of mind control. A lot of high-level characters are immune to that kind of stuff, so you have to find other ways to challenge them.
So it's not just about hitting them with bigger, badder monsters.
No, definitely not. You got to get more creative. Think outside the box.
Okay, I like that. So what are some ways to make those high-level encounters more engaging?
Well, the article talks about this idea of multistage combat. Instead of just a straight-up fight, the encounter evolves over time.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's a cool concept. Like, imagine your party is fighting a powerful mage.
Okay.
And midway through the battle, the mage teleports away.
What?
Yeah, but he doesn't just run. He uses that time to set traps, maybe summon some reinforcements, change the environment to his advantage.
Wow, that's sneaky.
Right. And then when the party least expects it, he comes back for round 2.
But now the battlefield is totally different. That's awesome.
It's like a boss fight in a video game. You have to adapt to the changing situation.
I love it. It's not just about brute force anymore.
Exactly. It's about strategy and resourcefulness.
So multi-stage combat is one way to spice things up. What else does the article suggest?
Well, another key element is environmental hazards.
Oh, yeah, I was reading about that. It sounds like they take environmental hazards to a whole new level at high levels.
Oh, absolutely. We're not just talking about a pit trap here and there. We're talking about turning the environment itself into a major threat.
Give me an example.
Okay, imagine your party is exploring a frozen wasteland. Suddenly, a blizzard rolls in. Visibility drops to almost 0. The wind is howling. The temperature is plummeting.
Right. That sounds brutal.
It is. And now the players have to contend with the environment. On top of whatever enemies they're facing.
Yeah, they can't just rely on their usual tactics. They had to think on their feet.
Exactly. The environment becomes an active participant in the encounter.
I like that. It adds a whole new layer of challenge. So we've got multi-stage combat. We've got environmental hazards. What about the monsters themselves? How do you make the enemies more interesting at high levels?
That's where unique monster abilities come in. Again, it's about thinking beyond just increasing hit points and damage.
Right.
You got to give those monsters something special, something that disrupts the party's strategies, makes them think creatively.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So instead of just a bigger, tougher ogre, you might give it an aura that suppresses healing magic.
Ooh, that's nasty.
It is. Now the party has to find other ways to keep themselves alive.
They can't just rely on their cleric to patch them up.
Right.
That's a good one.
Or you could give a monster a regeneration ability.
So even if they do damage...
It just heals right back up.
Oof, it's tough.
It is. It forces the players to figure out how to stop the regeneration. Otherwise, they're just fighting an endless battle.
Right. So it's like they have to solve a puzzle.
Exactly. It's not just about hitting things until they die. They have to figure out the monster's weakness.
I love that. It adds a whole new layer of depth to combat.
It does, and it makes the monsters feel more unique and memorable.
Absolutely. So we've got unique monster abilities. What else?
Well, you can also give your enemies more strategic behavior. These aren't just mindless beasts. They're intelligent opponents. They can use tactics, set ambushes, coordinate their attacks.
That's a good point.
They can even call for reinforcements.
Ooh, reinforcements.
Yeah, suddenly the party is outnumbered. They have to adapt their strategy.
That's always a fun twist.
It is. It really tests their ability to think on their feet.
And to manage their resources.
Exactly. High-level encounters should drain the party's resources. Make them think twice about blowing all their spells and potions early on.
Right, it becomes a balancing act.
Yeah, they need to conserve their strength for the long haul. But they also need to deal with the immediate threats.
It's a tough challenge.
It is, but that's what makes it so rewarding.
For both the players and the DM. So we've talked about a lot of cool ideas for individual encounters, but the article also mentions these things called encounter tables. What are those exactly?
Well, it's all about variety, you see.
Okay.
Even the most hardcore adventurers, they're going to get bored if they face the same challenges over and over again.
That's true.
Encounter tables are a great way to mix things up.
So it's like a randomizer?
Kinda, but instead of just random monsters, encounter tables can include all sorts of different challenges.
Like what?
Combat encounters, of course, but also skill tests,
Okay.
environmental puzzles,
Interesting.
social conflicts. You name it.
So it's a way to keep the players guessing.
Exactly.
They never know what they're going to face next. I like it.
And it forces you, as the DM, to be more creative.
Yeah, you can't just fall back on the same old tropes.
Right.
You have to come up with new and interesting scenarios. Okay, I'm sold on encounter tables.
Huh.
But how do you design one specifically for high-level play? What makes it different from a table you'd use for a low-level party?
Well, that's a great question, and that's exactly what we're going to dive into next time.
Oh, perfect. I can't wait to hear more.
Stay tuned.
Okay, so we're back, and we're ready to talk about these high-level encounter tables. Where do we even start with designing one?
Well, the article actually has a sample table for us. It's specifically designed for high-level D&D.
Oh, cool.
And get this, it's a D100 table.
Wow, 100 entries?
Yeah, 100. So you've got tons of variety.
That's awesome.
You could run a campaign for years and never have the same encounter twice.
Okay, so what kind of stuff is on this table?
It's a really good mix. You've got combat encounters, skill challenges, environmental puzzles, social conflicts.
Wow, so it's not just about fighting monsters.
No, not at all. It's about challenging the players in all sorts of ways.
Oh, give me some examples.
All right. Let's see. One that caught my eye is called Giants Feud.
Giants Feud.
Yeah, the party gets caught in the middle of a war between two clans of storm giants.
Whoa, that sounds epic.
It is. It's not just about fighting, though. The players have to use diplomacy, strategy, maybe even a little bit of luck.
To navigate this giant conflict.
Exactly.
It's like a political thriller.
Yeah, it's really cool. It raises the stakes because the players' decisions could have huge consequences.
For the whole region.
Right. It's not just about their own survival anymore.
Or like diplomats or something.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Okay, what else is on the table?
Let's see. There's one called Cursed Artifact.
Ooh, classic.
Right. The party finds a powerful magic item, but it comes with a curse.
Of course it does.
It's a classic dilemma. Do they risk the curse for the power, or do they try to break the curse?
That's a tough one.
It is, especially at high levels, when the players already have a lot of power.
It makes them really think about the consequences.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got giants. We've got cursed artifacts. What about a good old-fashioned dungeon crawl?
Oh, yeah, there's one for that, too. It's called Lich's Labyrinth.
A lich?
Yep. The party has to navigate a deadly maze to find the Lich's phylactery.
Ooh, liches are always fun.
They are. They're a classic challenge for high-level parties.
Because they're so powerful.
And they're practically immortal.
And they usually have tons of undead minions.
It's a real test of the party's strength and cunning.
I love it. Okay, so we've got some pretty intense encounters here. What about something a little more whimsical?
Oh, there's one for that, too. It's called Fey Court's Game.
Fey Court's Game.
Yeah, the party gets caught up in a game, orchestrated by the Fey Court.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
It is. The rules of the game are very strange and unpredictable.
Of course they are. It's the Fey, after all.
So it's like a mix of role-playing and problem-solving.
Exactly.
And maybe a little bit of madness.
Maybe a lot.
I like it. It sounds like a really fun and creative encounter.
It is.
Okay, what else we got?
Well, there's Golem Revolt, where a golem factory malfunctions.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and a bunch of rogue golems are running amok.
So the party has to stop them.
Yep. It's a mix of combat and skill challenging.
Like they have to fight some golems and maybe try to reprogram them or shut down the factory.
That sounds like a blast.
It is.
Okay, so we've got golems. What else?
We've got Shadowy Council, where the party uncovers a conspiracy.
Ooh, intrigue.
We've got Elemental Convergence, where the forces of nature are going crazy.
Wow.
We've got Demonic Siege, where a horde of demons is attacking a city.
That sounds terrifying.
It is, and there are plenty more.
Wow, this table is packed.
It is.
I'm getting so many ideas just listening to you describe these encounters.
Me too. It's really inspiring.
Okay, but you mentioned environmental challenges earlier.
Oh, yeah.
What are some of those like?
Well, there's one called Arcane Storm.
Arcane Storm.
Yeah, magic itself is going haywire.
Wow.
It creates all sorts of unpredictable effects, and it makes it really hard for spellcasters to control their powers.
So it's like a wild magic surge,
Kinda.
but on a much larger scale.
Exactly.
That sounds crazy.
It is.
Okay, what else?
There's time anomaly.
Time anomaly.
Yeah, time itself is distorted. It might speed up, slow down, even run in reverse.
That's a real mind bender.
It is.
So it's not just about fighting monsters. It's about navigating a reality that's gone bonkers.
Exactly.
These environmental challenges sound amazing.
They are, and the best part is, you can really tailor them to your campaign setting.
So they can be as fantastical or as grounded as you like.
Exactly.
I love it. It's clear that high-level D&D offers so much more than just bigger numbers.
It does.
It's a chance to create truly epic and unforgettable experiences.
Oh, you said it.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of cool encounters, but I'm curious. What do you think makes a high-level encounter truly epic? What elevates it beyond just being difficult?
That's a great question. I think it comes down to a few key things. First, you need a sense of scale and consequence.
Okay.
The players should feel like they're facing a threat.
Yeah.
That could change the world.
So it's not just about the size of the enemy.
No, it's about the impact of their actions.
The stakes are higher.
Exactly.
Okay, what else?
Well, you also want to give the players meaningful choices.
So their decisions actually matter.
Yes. And those choices should have lasting repercussions.
Not just for the immediate encounter,
Right.
but for the world as a whole.
Exactly.
I like that. It makes the players feel like they're really shaping the story.
They are.
Okay, what else?
Well, it's also important to tie the encounters back to the overarching story.
So they're not just random events.
Right. They're part of a larger narrative.
It gives them more weight and purpose.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm following you. Anything else?
Well, you can also introduce personal stakes.
Oh yeah, that's always a good one.
Like maybe one of the players has a personal connection to the villain.
Or the outcome of the encounter will affect their backstory.
Exactly.
That makes it much more engaging for the players.
It does.
Because it's not just about saving the world anymore.
It's about protecting the people they care about.
Or achieving their dreams.
It's about making the encounter personal.
I love it. So to sum it all up, designing truly epic, high-level encounters. It's about creating a sense of scale and consequence, giving players meaningful choices, tying encounters back to the story, and making things personal.
Absolutely.
It's about going beyond just bigger numbers and tougher monsters.
It's about crafting experiences that resonate on a narrative and emotional level.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
All right, so we've talked a lot about what makes high-level encounters special. But I want to get into the nitty-gritty of actually designing them.
No, sure.
Let's start with combat encounters.
Yeah.
What are some tips for making combat really exciting at high levels?
Well, one thing you can do is introduce legendary creatures.
Ooh, legendary creatures. Those are always a blast.
They are. They're perfect for high-level play because they have these unique abilities called legendary actions.
Oh, yeah, legendary actions. I've heard of those.
They basically allow the creature to take extra actions outside of their normal turn.
So it's like they're always one step ahead.
Exactly. It makes them much more dynamic and unpredictable.
And challenging. Can you give me an example?
Sure. Imagine your party is fighting a dragon.
Okay, classic.
But this dragon isn't just a big bag of hit points. It has legendary actions that allow it to do things like summon minions,
Oh,
create environmental hazards.
like what?
Maybe it can summon a wall of fire or a cloud of poisonous gas.
Wow, that's intense.
It is. It forces the players to think on their feet and adapt their strategy.
They can't just stand there and slug it out.
Right. They have to be more mobile, more strategic.
I like it.
And on top of legendary actions, legendary creatures often have unique abilities that make them even more formidable.
Okay, like what?
Well, going back to the dragon example, it might have an ability that allows it to control the weather.
So it could summon a thunderstorm.
Exactly. Now the battlefield is even more dangerous. The players have to worry about lightning strikes
Strong winds.
and torrential rain.
Wow, that's a lot to handle.
It is, but that's what makes it so exciting.
It's a real challenge.
And a memorable one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So legendary creatures are one way to spice up combat. What else can we do?
Well, you can also introduce team-based elements
Okay.
instead of just fighting a single monster.
The party has to face a coordinated group of enemies.
Exactly. This can be really challenging for high-level parties because they have to be more careful about positioning and target prioritization.
Yeah, if they focus on the wrong enemy.
They could get overwhelmed by the others, especially if the enemies are working together to flank the party or set up ambushes.
So it's not just about hitting things as hard as you can.
No, it's about being smart and strategic.
I like it. It makes combat much more engaging.
It does, and it forces the players to communicate and cooperate.
Which is always a good thing.
It is.
Okay, so we've talked about legendary creatures and team-based enemies. What about something a little more out there?
Well, the article has a section on cosmic horror.
Ooh, cosmic horror.
Yeah, it's about introducing creatures and concepts that are beyond human comprehension.
Like Lovecraftian monsters.
Exactly. Things like great old ones and outer gods.
Those are always fun.
They are, but they can be really challenging to implement, especially at high levels.
Why is that?
Well, because high-level characters are so powerful, they can often overcome even the most terrifying creatures.
Through sheer force of will.
Or magic.
So how do you make cosmic horror work at high levels?
Well, the key is to focus on the psychological and existential aspects, rather than just the physical threat.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So instead of just having a giant monster attack the party...
You might have them encounter something that warps their perception of reality.
Exactly, or drives them to madness.
Ooh, that's creepy.
It is, and it can be really effective at unsettling even the most experienced players.
Yeah, because it attacks them on a different level.
It does. It's not about hitting points and damage, it's about sanity and despair.
I love it. It's a whole new way to challenge players.
It is, and it can lead to some really memorable gaming moments.
Absolutely. So we've covered a lot of ground here today. We've talked about multi-stage combat, environmental hazards, unique monster abilities, legendary creatures, team-based enemies, cosmic horror, and of course encounter tables.
It's been a great discussion.
It has. I feel like I've learned a ton.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely inspired to start designing some epic, high-level encounters for my own games.
Me too.
And of course, we have to give another shout-out to LitRPG Reads and Paul Bello, fine fellow, for giving us this awesome topic to deep dive into.
Absolutely.
So what do you say we wrap things up here?
Sounds good to me.
All right, folks, that's it for this deep dive. We hope you enjoyed it. And we hope you learned a thing or two about designing high-level encounters. Now, if you'll excuse us, we've got some epic adventures to plan.
Until next time.
Keep those dice rolling, and may your adventures be legendary. And a final thanks to Paul Bello, fine fellow, for the great topic